Welcome to 1189, an online Bible commentary. My name is Tyler Marson, and today we're taking a look at Exodus chapter 10. Pharaoh has been relentless in keeping the Israelites in complete oppressive slavery. And as a result, God has been increasingly relentless in his plagues that judge Egypt. Each plague has specifically shown God's sovereignty and authority over different Egyptian deities, challenging the Egyptians' cultural beliefs in their pantheon. Meanwhile, it shouldn't be forgotten that each plague has also had lasting damages and effects on the economy and the families of the Egyptians. And it's all a result of Pharaoh's dedication to oppression. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go to Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the heart of his servants, that I may perform these signs of mine among them, and that you may tell in the hearing of your son and of your grandsons how I made a mockery of the Egyptians, and how I perform my signs among them, that you may know that I am the Lord." God tells Moses that, obviously, of course, he's setting them free from slavery for their sake and for God's name's sake, but he's also doing it for the sake of future generations. Those who come after Moses are going to have this moment to look back on and know that God can provide and will rescue them through their various circumstances and trials. And this is one reason we're still studying this story even today. Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said to him, "Thus says the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, how long will you refuse to humble yourself before me? Let my people go, that they may serve me. For if you refuse to let my people go, behold, tomorrow I shall bring locusts into your territory. And they shall cover the surface of the land, so that no one will be able to see the land. They will also eat the rest of what has escaped, what is left to you from the hail, and they will eat every tree which sprouts for you out of the field. Then your houses shall be filled, and the houses of all your servants, and the houses of all the Egyptians, something which neither your fathers nor your grandfathers have seen, from the day that they came upon the earth until this day." And he turned and went out from Pharaoh. Moses says that the 8th plague is coming, that of locusts. We mentioned in the last chapter how the plague of hail had come before the wheat and spelt had sprouted, meaning that they were spared and were still growing after. But the plague of locusts is going to destroy even those crops, meaning that the Egyptians are going to have an incredibly dismal harvest. God says there's going to be so many locusts that you won't even be able to see the ground that you're walking on. They're going to fill all the houses of all the Egyptians. Pharaoh's servant said to him, "How long will you let this man be a snare to us? Let the men go, that they may serve the Lord their God. Do you not realize that Egypt is destroyed?" At this point, even Pharaoh's own advisors are begging him to let the Israelites go. And they warn that Egypt is going to be destroyed if he doesn't. The rest of Egypt has been terrified of these plagues, but Pharaoh obviously isn't. And maybe that's because they haven't affected him immediately and personally. When the Nile turned to blood, he wasn't the one digging wells for drinking water. He had someone else do it for him. And when there was a plague on the cattle, that would have been incredibly destructive to an Egyptian family's financial assets. But Pharaoh is fine if a few cows die. And when the hail came that killed the Egyptians still in the fields, Pharaoh didn't have to worry. I mean, he definitely didn't work in the fields, and none of his family did either. Nevertheless, Pharaoh's advisors' opinions do sway him a little. So Moses and Aaron were brought back to Pharaoh, and he said to them, "Go, serve the Lord your God." "Who are the ones that are going?" Moses said, "We shall go, with our young and our old, with our sons and our daughters, with our flocks and our herds, we shall go, for we must hold a feast to the Lord." Then he said to them, "Thus may the Lord be with you, if ever I let you and your little ones go. Take heed, for evil is in your mind. Not so. Go now, the men among you, and serve the Lord, for that is what you desire." So they were driven out from Pharaoh's presence. So Pharaoh seemingly gives in again, allowing the Israelites to go and worship their God, on the condition that they leave behind their children and their flocks. I mean, why would they need them to do a sacrifice anyway? And Moses obviously refuses. I mean, they can't leave their possessions and their children in slavery while they get to escape. And at that point, Pharaoh changes his mind again and refuses to let any of the people go. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the land of Egypt for the locusts, that they may come up on the land of Egypt and eat every plant of the land, even all that the hail has left. So Moses stretched out his staff over the land of Egypt, and the Lord directed an east wind on the land all day and all that night. And when it was morning, the east wind brought the locusts. The locusts came up all over the land of Egypt and settled in the territory of Egypt, and they were very numerous. There had never been so many locusts, nor would there ever be so many again. For they covered the surface of the whole land so that the land was darkened. And they ate every plant of the land and all the fruit of the trees that the hail had left. Thus nothing green was left on tree or plant of the field through all of the land of Egypt. So the plague of locusts comes with a great wind from the east. And according to Rice University, this shows God's sovereignty over the Egyptian god Set, the god of disorder and storms. The locusts destroy all the crops, all the trees, all the plants, all the fruit. And this is again an inverse of Genesis 1 and 2, where God provided trees and plants and fruit for the people to eat in the Garden of Eden. Then Pharaoh hurriedly called for Moses and Aaron, and he said, I have sinned against the Lord your God and against you. Now therefore please forgive my sin only this once, and make supplication to the Lord your God, that he would only remove this death from me. And he went out from Pharaoh and made supplication to the Lord. So the Lord shifted the wind to a very strong west wind, which took up the locusts and drove them into the Red Sea. Not one locust was left in all the territory of Egypt. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he did not let the sons of Israel go. Pharaoh again begs and pleads for the plague to end, and Moses and Aaron oblige. And God sends a wind from the west that blows all the locusts back from where they came, and they drown in the Red Sea. An image that obviously foreshadows some future events. Nevertheless, God hardens Pharaoh's heart, and he does not let the people go. Then the Lord said to Moses, Stretch out your hand towards the sky, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, even a darkness which may be felt. So Moses stretched out his hand towards the sky, and there was a thick darkness in all of the land of Egypt for 3 days. They did not see one another, nor did anyone rise from his place for 3 days. But all the sons of Israel had light in their dwellings. The 9th plague is that of darkness. And it's not just regular darkness, right? In the words of SpongeBob, this is advanced darkness. It says that it can be felt, and it's thick, and it lasts for 3 days. All of this targets Ra, the Egyptian sun god, the chief of all their gods. And this is why it's set in this kind of climactic position as the 9th of the 10 plagues. Of course, though, miraculously, the Israelites who follow the true God of light, they all have lights in their dwelling places. Then Pharaoh called to Moses and said, Go, serve the Lord, only let your flocks and your herds be detained. Even your little ones may go with you. But Moses said, You must also let us have sacrifices and burnt offerings, that we may sacrifice them to the Lord our God. Therefore our livestock too shall go with us, not a hoof shall be left behind. For we shall take some of them to serve the Lord our God. And until we arrive there, we ourselves do not know with what we will serve the Lord. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he was not willing to let them go. After the 9th plague, Pharaoh again softens his attitude. He allows the Israelites to leave, to go out into the wilderness, to sacrifice to their God, and even take their children, as long as the livestock stay in Egypt. And Moses again refuses. The excuse being that they need something to sacrifice to the Lord, so they're going to need to bring their livestock with them. Of course, in actuality, we know that God doesn't just want to set the Israelites free from slavery and then just leave them to it. He wants to take care of them and provide for them and help them thrive, which is why holding on to the few possessions that they have is of the utmost importance. But God hardens Pharaoh's heart again for the 3rd and final time in this set of 10 plagues. Now remember, that means that there were 7 times that Pharaoh hardened his own heart against God. He does not let the people go. Then Pharaoh said to him, Get away from me. Beware that you do not see my face again, for in the day you see my face, you shall die. Moses said, You are right, for I shall never see your face again. And we close out this chapter with a little bit of dramatic irony against Pharaoh. He tells Moses the next time he sees him, he's going to kill him. And Moses says that technically that's right, because they're never going to see each other again. That's because the next plague is the last one. And it's going to have huge ramifications for Moses' story, for Israel's story, for the Bible's story, and even if you believe it, the story of our everyday lives. But in this chapter, we see that the plagues have convinced a lot of the Egyptians, even some of Pharaoh's top advisors, that this God is powerful and should be feared. They need to listen and obey to Moses and his God. But Pharaoh, for some reason or the other, just still will not completely give in. He continues to haggle, even as families are losing loved ones and the economy is tanking. But God does confirm that this will be the last time Moses and Pharaoh ever see each other. It's an ominous warning for the future that all comes to a head in the next 2 chapters. So I hope you come back for that. Thanks for watching 1189. I hope you have a good day, and God bless.